G'day folks, Raymond Foster here. Hope you're doing great. Merry Christmas. Oh. I just had somebody tell me that I know that, well, they asked nicely, they're like, oh please, do you mind if you don't talk to me, blah blah blah. Like, there's somebody that they like to hang around me and stuff. They wanted to associate and learn from me and whatnot. And then now they've had a change of heart, a change of thought, which is fair enough, each to their own. I'm not here to preach to anybody. It's just those who are willing to listen and care to listen to what I have to say. If they have any questions, I'm happy to answer. But I'm not trying to preach or teach folk things that don't want to learn. So that's perfectly fine. So she's asked, she said, oh please, I don't want to, don't want your guidance anymore, essentially. And I'd appreciate if you can respect that boundary and, just leave me be. And I was like, okay, that's perfectly fine. It's makes no difference, again, no difference to me whatsoever, whoever the person is. Okay, I'm my own man, King of Kings. And again, I'm simply here to answer people's questions, give people guidance, show them how to live correctly, how to be happy, how to be mature, men or women, if that is what they want. And if they wish to ask me those things, I am 100% adamant as an authority on life that I can answer such questions better than most beings alive on this planet right now. Anyway, she's asked me to please leave her be. And I said, okay. Then she brought up my character. And most ironically, not unsurprising to myself, she described my character as virtuous, as the will of God, as high and noble, of true honor. Yet this was her very reason. My high character, my virtue, was her reason. My pure heart and pure intentions and noble soul was her reason as to why she didn't want to continue communications with me, and quote unquote why she doesn't like me. That is a classic, age-old wisdom and understanding. Because I am too real, I'm too noble, too honorable, that she doesn't like me. Why? Specifically because my high character, my nobility, brings up in herself, via reflection on herself, her own traumas and triggers and negativity. So because I'm so much brighter than herself, she reflects on that like a moon reflecting the light from the sun. And then that makes her recognize and become aware of her own limitations and faults, the fact that she is below me in that regard. She has not obtained to the level of virtue that a man like myself has. Some folk will be blinded and repelled by how bright and noble and just and virtuous you are. Greek philosophers often spoke about this because they came up against this often, for they were individuals of high nobility and character. Individuals who had obtained to virtue in their own lives and lived as philosophers. Obviously, Jesus Christ himself, who did nothing but speak truth boldly and had the highest of character, the highest of the attainment of virtue, and so went out in the world with nothing else on his mind but to conquer for truth and to establish the sacredness of what is true and real, and to throw everything else, to disregard everything else throw it all in the bin and only hold on to a flaming sword of truth. For this, those who lived in deception, again, for the same reason this individual doesn't want me to speak to her, okay, like the Pharisees, etc., they had to reflect on themselves because of the high character of a man like Jesus that was higher than their own character, and that made them look down on themselves because they cannot not understand or have a glimpse of, due to the high character of an individual, the fact that within themselves there is also a part of themselves that is of that same high character and nobility. Yet they deny that high character, that virtue within themselves, and live in a more mundane and fleshly type of existence. And so from that part of themselves which is equal to the virtue of a man like Christ, they judge themselves in the presence of such a man and look at their own darkness in which they live, instead of resting in the illumination of that spirit which is in all. And therefore they become very apparent of the things to which they have buried deep in their psyche and in their hearts. These things come up and they have to reflect on them again, because a part of themselves is reflected in the nature of those who have high virtue and character, and then they look down on themselves that they live through. They're forced in that moment. That's the triggers which arise from past traumas, etc., and where they are forced to become defensive and lash out, to cut off relations, communications, etc. It's a type of defense mechanism, because their identity, which is rested in that lower, lesser, worldly expression of themselves, is threatened by the recognition of that light, that higher virtue, that higher character, that spirit which dwells within all things. And so in that moment, instead of actually having some awareness and self-judgment and stepping beyond their limitations and increasing their wisdom, their nobility, their understanding of life and what is good, and therefore obtaining to higher virtue, instead they become hostile, defensive, they retreat back and become smaller. They do not expand in spirit, but they become more dense and retract in spirit and become cold of heart and hostile, engage in conflict and denunciation, aversion of that light which made them reflect on themselves. So it is no different to an individual who looks in a mirror and doesn't like their own self-image, so they smash the mirror, or they turn away and never look at the mirror again. An illumined being or a sage, a philosopher, is unto the average man or woman or child a mirror, because their intentions are pure. Their self is pure and without intention. Again, like a river which merges with the ocean, the intentions of a sage are like the river which merges with the will of God and all of creation in the world. And what they see in that individual is the part of themselves from which they are living from, and they project onto that individual, who is a pure blank canvas with no intention or desire. Instead of being able to embrace the light of the reflection of their own nature, and then weed it and grow through it and love it, forgive it, nurture it, transcend it, etc. To better themselves, to better the world, to do what is right, and what is good. It is neither immoral or moral that they act in this manner, and that is why they are inherently forgiven for lashing out in such ways. For it is an ignorance more than it is an evil, for it is self-sabotage. You see, I am not affected, nor can I be affected by anything external. I am my own master and in complete control of my own will and my own emotions. And therefore I only remain blissful, peaceful, tranquil, and happy in all moments. And therefore it is the individual themselves who cannot reflect and who is blinded by a light, the light or illuminating nature of another being that they encounter, which suffers. Not the being which they become hostile towards or reject and become averse towards, because they cannot handle the light of that individual which brings reflection onto themselves. And again, I cannot be affected. It will only ever be you who is affected by not taking on what I have to say, not following my guidance. You will bring suffering onto yourself. But if you want tranquility, peace, and bliss, listen to the words that I say and take them on wholeheartedly. And then contemplate them. Never accept them as 100% truths as some form of external authority. But if you can hear me speaking from within your own heart, if you can see and hear me as an extension of yourself, that we are two cells in one organism called life, interacting with each other, and I am just another aspect of yourself, then take on everything I say wholeheartedly and 100% with complete authority. It is a part of you which is from good, from the virtue, a part of your soul, a part of your mind, a part of your spirit, which is always pure and has never been tainted by the corruptions of this world. And it is through reflection on that part of yourself which is pure, through others who live from that space of purity, that you can obtain to more of that purity within yourself, and you can flood your nature with that purity. But you must find the dam and the gates of that dam and break open that dam. Find that place within yourself, that buried purity within yourself, that higher nature, your own nobility, your own virtuous character, the goodness within yourself. Find it where it is buried within yourself. Break open that dam and flood your being with virtue and goodness. Endlessly overflowing with that goodness and virtue. And never stop bettering yourself. Never stop having more bliss. Never stop having more peace and tranquility. Never stop becoming happier and happier and happier until you pass on. There is no need to move on as the waves of life, up and down, when you can simply become the entire ocean and just rest in that tranquility and bliss and the harmony of it all, the unity of life. Those who understand this move through the various sheaths of being to an understanding of the unity of life. Say thank you every day that you exist, and grow in peace and bliss and happiness. Or become overwhelmed by that light and wither away like a seed which is destined to rot or die or not even germinate in the first place. And yes, there are some beings who have germinated and they've sprouted and they've grown and shot up like beautiful, beautiful sprouts. But they wither in the dry sun, or the soil is too clay, not silty enough, not enough nutrition, and so they wither up and they die. With this individual, the sun at the moment, and perhaps only temporarily, is just a bit too bright, a bit too hot, and the plant of her being is withering a little, and it cannot stand, it cannot handle the heat.